we're going to have a first tonight. We're going to have our youth pastor, Boston Young, is going to be preaching to us tonight. I thank God for the work of youth ministry. I personally began the journey to ministry in the music field and transitioned from that as a full-time musician into youth ministry. And I learned a lot about people. I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about how families worked and how families didn't work. Because when you deal with people's kids and young people, you learn a lot about what happens at home. But it's been a lot of wonderful memories with young people. And this church, I want all the young people to listen to me. This church does not view you young people as the church of tomorrow. You're part of the church today. Hallelujah. You feel that way? I look over here at Brother Anthony Pizarro, who was the youth pastor for our youth pastor. So he's like the bishop of youth pastors. So I want Bishop Pizarro to come sit up here in support. He poured a lot of ministry into our youth pastor. I love Boston. I love Sister Haley. And I'm proud of them. And this is his first time to preach to the Rock Church. He preaches to the young people, and I want him to be comfortable. Yes, if you're a guest, this is my son, in whom I am well pleased, my only begotten son. Hopefully, this isn't a sacrifice tonight, but I so love the Rock Church that I gave you my only begotten son. And the result is that whosoever believeth in him shall not perish, but have everlasting life. Amen. Would you welcome, make him feel at home. Boston, come preach the word.
Praise the Lord, everybody. Not really sure what to do after an introduction like that. So I'll just get into the word. I'm humbled to be here tonight. I'm honored. I'm privileged. I'm all the words that you're supposed to say when you preach somewhere for the first time. But most of all, I'm excited because I have a word for this church tonight, and I think it's timely. I think it's meant to be in this season, and I believe someone's going to be touched tonight. And on Sunday, you guys heard from a young, lively evangelist. So I think the main reason my dad had me preach tonight is because he needed an old sage to come and impart some wisdom to you guys. So, anyway, that was a joke for those of you that don't understand. My text tonight comes from 1 Samuel chapter 17 and verse 25. Say amen when you're there. And the men of Israel said, "Have ye seen this man that is come up? Surely to defy Israel is he come up. And it shall be that the man who killeth him, the king will enrich him with great riches, and will give him his daughter, and make his father's house free in Israel." And David spake to the men that stood by him, saying, "What shall be done to the man that killeth this Philistine, and taketh away the reproach from Israel? For who is this uncircumcised Philistine, that he should defy the armies of the living God?" And the people answered him after this manner, saying, "So shall it be done to the man that killeth him." If you can't tell, I'm going to be preaching about David and Goliath. But this story is one of the most retold stories within the whole Bible, especially by young men, because it's a little bit helpful when you're a young preacher to preach about young David, and his confidence helps you to have more confidence to overcome my obstacle. But I think God has given me a special word within this story that we've all heard 1,000 times. So tonight I'm going to be preaching about slaying your giant or killing your giant. You may be seated. Always wanted. Normally we rush to the fun part of the story of David and Goliath. Normally we like to talk about chopping off people's head and then throwing rocks at people and just like mayhem and fun battle and stuff like that. But I want us to pay special attention to the promise that Saul gives. The man who killeth him, the king will enrich him with great riches and will give him his daughter and will make his father's house free in Israel. Let's begin with the fact that the king would give David his daughter to marry. We must first understand that in antiquity, marriage had nothing to do with the frivolous thing in those days, the frivolous thing called love that we think of now when we think of marriage. Back in those days, marriage was a business decision. Marriage was how you aligned one kingdom to another, one family to another, one people to another. Marriage was how someone of lesser means became a part of something bigger than them. How someone, a lesser favored son, would align himself with another family and get pushed into another realm, another dimension. And so when the king is talking about giving his daughter, we need to have that thought in mind, not that David wasn't in love with the king's daughter. He had never even met her, probably. But it was how you became a part of the family. David was an outsider within his own family. David was the odd man out. We all know the story of how Samuel came and David's dad didn't even think of him as his son. He was out tending the sheep when the prophet came looking. They didn't even think about David. David was just this dude over playing with the sheep. And just think about that constant outsiderness, that constant not being a part. And so when he heard this, you could be a part of the king's family. You could go from being looked down on, you could go from being hated, you could go from being not even looked at. People don't even know you exist, much less look down on you. He could go, with one single solitary decision, he could go from being forgotten to a part of the royal family. David was in. David was stoked. David was, all right, yeah, I'll go. What do I need to do? And you see, the interesting part of this story is that David had heard the stories of great people that one decision in their life had changed their life. One small thing, seemingly small, was a pivotal moment in their life. Because David's great-grandmother, Ruth, made one decision to go with Naomi, and that one decision was the thing that catapulted her from not even a part of the people to the very people of God. One decision changed not just her life, but her children's life. One decision changed everything for her. One small decision. He probably also, probably not firsthand, but his great-great-grandmother, Rahab, made a simple decision to hide some Hebrews. And yes, it was scary because she could have been killed. And yes, but one decision that was probably seeming not too big at the time. That one decision didn't just change her life, but it changed the course of an entire nation. One act did this. One thing. And I can imagine David had grown up in those stories. I knew my great-grandfather, so I can imagine he knew his great-grandmother. Hearing firsthand from her, and hearing the stories about her mother, and hearing all these stories, how one act changed their life, not just their lives, but the course of the whole nations. And this is why David could act so fast. When he heard, the king will enrich him with great riches, and will give his daughter, and make his father's house free in Israel. He could be a part of the king's family. The cost didn't matter. But there's more to this promise than just marriage. You see, the Jews had a very different understanding of marriage, which hopefully I've explained. But they also had a very different understanding of freedom. We think about when the king makes that statement, freedom, it being free from taxes, or free from debt, or free from whatever. But in that day and time, in the Jewish culture, in the Hebrew culture, freedom was something that you and I as Americans have a hard time understanding. Because in those days, within that nation, indentured slavery was very prevalent. And for those of you that don't understand what indentured slavery is, indentured slavery was if I can't pay my debt, or if I am struggling to pay my debt, instead of, or my family dies and I have no way to support myself, or fill in the blank, I would sell myself into slavery for X amount of years, depending on the debt, and at the end of this period of time, I'm free to go. And so, when that statement is made free in Israel, there's people speaking who had been slaves. There was people speaking that had been in a position where you're not free to do what you want. You're not free to go swimming. You're not free to eat. You're not free to work when you want to work. You're not free to be with your family when you want to be with your family. You're not free. You're a slave. And so that freedom statement is bigger and more pressing and more, it's a big statement. It's a powerful statement. You can be free in Israel. It's more than us as Americans can even understand. But it went further than this. You see, the Hebrews had very distinctive, very direct, word for word directions for when you set someone free. When you cuff Shay, there's a big whole word search. Ask Bishop Haley about that. She's really good at searching out words in Greek and Hebrew and Latin and all kinds of stuff. But when you set someone free from indentured slavery, the book of Deuteronomy gave you very, very specific directions as to how you were to set someone free. You didn't just turn them out into the cold. You didn't just say, you're free to go. You're free to do as you please. You're free to have fun. You're free to... No. You were to treat that person as an equal. You were to treat that person as a brother. You were to treat that countryman as one of your own family. Not only were you to bless him, but you were to send him off better than he came. You were to send him off in a whole nother place, a whole nother dimension, a whole nother understanding, a whole nother lifestyle. You were to put him into another level. So when the king states that I will make his father's house free in Israel, he wasn't saying no taxes or no debt. He was saying, David, if you just do this one little thing, you can't even imagine. You can't even believe what's going to happen. You don't even understand what's going to follow. All you have to do is kill your giant. All you have to do is slay that giant. And you won't even understand what's going to happen. You won't even, your mind can't even comprehend what will come. You will be the king, David. And that's great. But out of your lineage, the Messiah will come. You will be the King David. And all these things can happen. All you have to do is slay your giant. You have to do what no one else is willing to do. You have to go further. But it gets worse before it gets better. We like to talk about David killing the giant. We like to talk about David getting the 5 stones out of the river and swinging his little slingshot. We like to make that a happy, fun, easy story. And in some ways it might be, but it gets worse before it gets better. I hate to tell you that. It gets much worse before it gets better. It gets painful before it gets better. You see, when we tell that story in Sunday school, we tell that story, we like to focus on the battle. And there's no negatives. David just gets 5 stones and throws them at the dude and then chops his head off. But that's not how the text actually reads. You see, people turn against you when you decide to kill your giant. People come against you when you decide to take a stand. The very next verse, Eliab begins to make fun of David. Eliab is David's brother. Eliab had the most to gain. Eliab would be a part of the family of the king due to nothing other than birth if his brother was successful. But Eliab began to belittle him. Eliab began to tear him down. The verse says, with whom, Eliab says, with whom have you left your sheep? What he's really saying is, David, I know who you are. I know what you are. You're just a shepherd. Who do you think you are to kill your giant? I know what you do every day. I know what you did last week. I know what you watched. I know your addictions. I know your sins. Who are you to start that Sunday school route? Who are you to even show up to men's workday? Who are you to start a new Sunday school class? Who are you to do the work of the Lord? Who are you to take a stand when the rest of the youth group's not standing? Who are you to be that young married who actually steps up to the plate? Who are you? You aren't Bob Bertram. That's what we have all these where if we want to step up to the plate, our brothers and sisters sometimes will come against us. When I want to be Father Bob, I know young marrieds in this church that would want to be that. I know young marrieds that would want to take the place of that so many years ago when we had in prayer that Brother Marty Heedy. I know people that want to take that mantle on, but they're afraid to because of what their brothers, what those that will vicariously benefit. But we're tearing them down. But that's not what I'm preaching about. But just think about it. Who are you to worship David? I've seen people lose friends when they decide to take that stand. I've seen people be torn down. I've seen people lose family members when they make a stand to kill. I've been in a family where when our David decided to take a stand, we lost family members. I've been in a church that when we decided to take a stand and to kill our giant, we lost friends. I'm thinking of one young man in the youth group. I won't say his name, but he probably wouldn't care if I did. But he's taken a stand in the last couple of weeks, and within days of him taking that stand, people begin to belittle him. People begin to text him and say, "Who do you think you are to kill that giant? Who do you think you are? Don't tell me what to do." Who? Why is that? That doesn't make sense. Why? It's not hurting them. Why? But you see, when you take a stand and you say, "You know what? I'll kill that giant," it makes someone else realize, I'm not killing my giant. When you take a stand, people will come against you because they realize, wait, I'm not doing what I should do. I'm not living up to that place I'm supposed to be at. It will get worse before it gets better. I'm thinking of a man. He also wouldn't care if I use his name, but I don't, just because I don't want to. But he had a very lucrative career. He had a very lucrative life laid out for himself. He had a great plan. Life was going good. He was going to be very, very wealthy. And due to one injury, he could not become the thing that he had worked for to become the thing he had worked to become his entire life. His life began to spiral. It began to get bad. His life was broken. His career was down the tubes. He would never be that thing that he had strived to be. He would never be that. And when you see that, when you see your dreams are never going to come to fruition, it gets bad. He turned to alcohol. He became an alcoholic. And life just got worse and worse and worse. Finally, one day, he stumbled into an apostolic church and was filled with the Holy Ghost. Baptized in Jesus' name. But I wish I could say that's when it all got better, but that's when it actually got worse. Because that's when his wife turned against him. That's when, I can't believe you're going to that church. You're joining a cult. When he was an alcoholic, these people weren't saying anything. When he was living life for the next drink, people weren't saying anything. But the second he decided to take a stand and kill that giant in his life, what are you doing? Why? But he kept going. He kept killing that giant. You see, we get lost a lot of times in the fact that we think it's an overnight process. We think it's, I'll kill my giant, and then you kill the giant, and then it's dead. But we don't realize that David made the decision to kill the giant way back here. But then there's a lot of stuff he had to go through. He had to go through his brother making fun of him in front of everyone. He had to go through basically telling the king, you're a chicken, which takes some confidence. He had to go through the process of getting the stones, or getting the skills, or getting the things he would use to slay that enemy, to slay that giant. He had to take the steps out into the valley. He had to, it wasn't an overnight process. It was a work. He had to work every day to kill his giant. And this man began that process of killing his giant. And life got worse, but he kept going. Life got bad, he kept going. His wife turned against him, he kept going. Until finally those giants were slayed. Those giants don't bind him anymore. He's free. But it gets better now. Today, not only is he in church, and today not only are his giants killed, but today his wife sits on the pew next to him. Today his kids sit on the pew next to him. Today he has a ministry that touches people around the world. Today he has a ministry that touches each and every one of us. You see, when you take a stand and you decide, you know what, I'm going to slay that giant, it wounds the giant in someone else's life. When he took a stand to kill that giant in his life, it wounded his wife's giant. Because if you're in a line, the way they used to do battle in those times, it wasn't guerrilla warfare like this, but it was very entrenched like this. Well, when he took a stand, when you take a stand and you kill one thing in that line, the whole line's weaker. And so that's what happens with the enemy. When you kill that giant, when you kill your giant, you're weakening the entire defenses. You're making it that much easier for your loved ones to come. When you take those stands that are breaking your heart, when the whole world's turning against you, when people are tearing you down, when you take those stands, you're weakening the enemy. You're tearing down what the enemy is those barriers. It may hurt, but it's gonna get better. It may hurt. You might feel like your life's dying. You might feel like everyone you love, everyone in your life is against you now because I took that stand. But you're doing it for them. It's not just about you. You're doing it for them. When you step out on that altar, it makes it that much easier for one of your brothers to step out. When you're that men's prayer day or men's birthday, it makes it that much easier for one of your brothers to step out. When you kill your giant, it wounds everyone else's giant. This is actually my favorite part. I get excited about this part. I mean, I get excited about all of it, but you see, it affects not only your life, it affects your family's life. It affects every member of your family's life. It affects your friend's life. It affects, I could use 100 examples of Brother Hustetler when he got in church. Now if you look at his family, there's 4 rows of people. I mean, there's literally, I could go around this room and point out at least 5 people in each section that when you took a stand to kill your giant, it wounded other giants. And it takes a lot of courage to take that first step. But you see, once you take that first step, really that first step's the only hard decision to make. You see, this is my favorite part. The promise is given by the king. And David spake to the men that stood by him, saying, What shall be done to the man that killeth this Philistine, and taketh away the reproach from Israel? For who is this uncircumcised Philistine, that he should defy the armies of the living God? And the people answered him after this manner, saying, So shall it be done to the man that killeth him. Did you catch it? Not once does David even ask how tall the giant is. Not once does David ask. David doesn't even acknowledge that it's a giant. It's just another Philistine. It's just another dude. I don't know, you guys are... When you... How many were here when Brother Raleigh was here a couple weeks ago? Do you remember when he was talking about you're predestined to win? All you have to do is worry. You don't even have to worry about the fight. You know you're winning. You just have to fight. That's what David's saying. David asks. He doesn't ask a single thing about the giant. He doesn't ask a single thing about how he's going to win the battle. He doesn't ask a single thing about what happens if he hits me in the arm and I can't use my slingshot arm and I'm right-handed, not left-handed. What am I going to do? He doesn't ask any of that. He doesn't even want armor. David simply says, he asks them he double checks. He says, going all over the place. And David speaks, so he gives the deal, and David says, What shall be done? What shall be done to the man that killeth this Philistine? He's not worried about the fight. He's worried about the promise. The fight doesn't cross his mind. The promise is there. All you have to do is stand. All you have to do is stand. All you have to do is take that step. That first step will be hard, and people might come against you, but you're gonna win. You're gonna win. There's no question of the outcome if you'll just stand. If you'll just take that step. You know, I'll just be honest with you guys. When I found out that tonight was, I know I've read JTP's book and how you're always supposed to be super thankful and happy when you get asked to preach. But when I found out that the first time I would be preaching at the Rock Church was Manifest, I was a little trepidatious. I was a little nervous because I know the way a lot of us, including myself, sometimes view Manifest Night. I know the way a lot of us view Tuesday nights in general. It's easy to be casual, especially in our casual clothes. It's easy to, after a long day's work, just take it easy, chill. I've had a long day, it's just going to be a nice little lesson, and it's just Boston preaching. He's preaching to the youth. But maybe the reason I'm speaking tonight on a Manifest of all Tuesday nights is because there's no throwaway Tuesdays. There's no throwaway Sundays. There's no throwaway Fridays. There's no throwaway days. We gotta kill them. You know, for some of us, the giant in our life is sin. The giant in our life is something big. The giant in our life is something that has to be overcome, no matter what. For some of us, the giant in our life is lust, or the giant in our life is disobedience or anger. For some of us, that might be the case, but for a lot of us, the giant in our life is the thing that keeps us. The giant in our life is the thing that keeps us from becoming that prayer warrior. The giant in our life is that thing that keeps us from stepping up to the plate when no one will, from being the one that steps out in worship, or being the one that takes a Tuesday night when everyone else is sitting back, relaxing with their hands in their pocket, being the one that steps up, being the one that takes the place of the elders. For some of us, for a lot of us, that's the giant. It's that giant of fear of stepping out, of stepping up. But when you step out, when you step up, the battle's won. You don't have to worry about the outcome. You don't have to worry about what happens next. All you have to do is step. So tonight, I'm making an altar. And I know it's a Manifest Tuesday. But tonight, I'm making an altar not for everyone, but only for the serious, only for the people that are actually gonna step up and kill their giant. Tonight I'm making an altar for those of us, whether it be sin or whether it be the sin of missing the mark. If you want to kill your giant, this altar is open to you tonight. If you want to take a stand and take that step out, I want us to come at this time. If you're serious that tonight is your night, tonight you're taking that step, the battle's already won, you just have to fight it. If you're